What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It's Wednesday at Sith Council. Got a lot to talk about today, man. There's a lot of stuff. Now, obviously, you guys have stopped by and said, hey, you guys going to talk about Bad Batch episodes 1 and 2? Of course we will. It'll be a full spoiler review or discussion with myself, Steph, Sabra, and the Inner Geekdom legend. No, not that one. The last champion that we've ever had in the Schmodown. That's right. Kevin Smets, the Smasher, returns. He is here. And we're going to be talking about the Bad Batch. We're going to be talking about there's a new class of Stormtroopers in the Ahsoka series. That's the rumor. We'll talk about that. The big one, the big conversation is that Lindelof's movie. It's already starting. So we've been talking about it on this show for months that we believe that was going to be the next project. So is that the case? Solo 2 is not a priority. Big shocker there. And that's by Ron Howard, right out the mouth. So those subjects and more can be discussed on today's show. And I'm going to be joined once again by both Steph and Kevin Smets. And before we even get into that, everybody, check it out. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere podcasts are found, you can check out Sith Council on the Big Thing podcast. People are asking, someone recently said, where did I find the show? This is all Big Thing. This is Big Thing. This is our Big Thing Star Wars show. And you can find it on the Big Thing podcast for sure. Now, patreon.com/the Big Thing Show. We have a lot of things going on over there, whether it's the Q&As, the rewatches, so much in the one-on-one sessions, that and more. So we'd also like to tell you about the merch, man. You want to get a Sith Council shirt, show some class, the Top Gun guy, all that stuff, go and do it. And before I also want to say this, before we even start, I want to talk about our good buddy Ben Rayner. Ben was someone who was a big supporter of the show, and in general, he watched every single episode. He contributed to both this show, there's Roxy's show, Brett and Kate. He's a big Schmodown guy, John Campion's show, everything. He was just such a wonderful, wonderful human being. I had an opportunity to talk to Ben on with these one-on-one sessions that I just talked about, and Ben was recently just come in. We had a few great conversations, and we found out over the last week and a half that Ben had passed away, and it was just pretty devastating to the entire community. He was a really, really genuine human being, and he was just a bright light, and he was just one of those guys that is always positive, always sending in comments and great questions and great topics, passionate about movies, passionate about the Schmodown, just passionate in general. And we lost a good one with Ben Rayner. And so my thoughts and my love goes out to his family. But this episode of Sith Council is dedicated to the great Ben Rayner. So with that, everybody, let's get into it. Let's get into Sith Council. It's myself, Steph Sabra, and the Smasher. Let's do it. We love you, Ben.
I can feel your anger. It gives you focus, makes you stronger.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Sith Council. It's me. It's Steph Sabra and the Smash.
It gives you focus.
It gives you focus to have the Smash
anger.
on. That's true. Welcome back, buddy. You're busting my chops about having you on this freaking show for the longest time.
Well, now I'm about to move too, and I was like, got a couple weeks left. So, look, I was a big fan of you, and I have videos on my phone of Jedi Council talking about my KOTOR movie when I had Rachel give you a DVD.
That, yeah.
And
watched that on a plane.
Yeah, we were playing in New York, I remember, and it just the words that you said about it, on the show that I watched for so long for Jedi Council. So to be on the Sith Council is a very big honor, and I appreciate it. And to Ben Rayner too, I was on his show 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
and he was just or 3 weeks ago, but we had such a good time on the show. And then on the 23rd of December, he just wrote a nice message saying, "I hope you and your family have a good Christmas."
Yeah. Sweetheart.
We love him.
Yeah, we absolutely.
But glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you.
And see Steph too. So.
And Steph, how are you?
I'm good.
You good?
Yeah.
Did you have a good New Year?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And now I have some coffee, a la Kristian, in the Capes and Cowls cup.
That's right.
I can't complain.
You can't.
I really can't. The rain is.
I love it.
You do.
I love it. We need it.
I love it.
I know we do need it,
Yeah.
but I just wish I didn't have to be outside.
it's pretty. I love it because we just don't get enough of it. But I was, before we move into it, I got to tell you, because I know you've got a little one, I've got two, and Steph and I have a common bond where she realizes I have a soprano for a kid. I sent probably if I put that video up on TikTok, which I won't, it will probably do probably about 2 million views. Basically, my daughter was trying to get a like one more candy or something too, so she goes I go out to throw the trash out, and I hear my wife go, don't do that. Don't do that. And I look, and I go, and I bring the camera, and I record. I go, what are you doing? Show me. And she goes,
like
and just
straight up.
and doesn't know what she's doing. And she's like, I just want one more. And then I go, and I'm like, Maisie, you can't do that. It's not.
But it's the face.
She can go viral. You don't want her to go viral for that.
And at the end of it, she does that. But she is hilarious. Like this morning, I was like, because I got for sure, I weighed myself recently. I got to lose weight. And then, so yesterday morning, I'm making eggs for my daughter, and she looks at me and she goes, Daddy, why you look thinner? And I go, thanks. And I walk over, and she's like, nah, you're fat again. And then I step back. She goes, nah, you're thinner again. And then it was hilarious. I thought it was so funny. And then the final thing she does this morning, she got her dolls out. And she's got the Barbie and Ken and everything too. And she's like dressing them up. She's like, I can't find Ken's clothes, and Ken, I see his shirt on. I go, I just send him. I go, send him with his pants off. Who cares? And she goes, no, they're gonna see his penis.
That's a little mini soprano.
Yeah. No, she's Polly Walnuts. She
really.
My daughter's starting to talk too, and she definitely likes to say, like, I'll be like, do you love Daddy? And she'll be like, no, Kira, like that. Like I'm like, oh, okay, that's great.
Cool.
That's great. Yeah,
Speaking of angles, dude, it looks like I had one too many Ronto wraps.
That's what I'm telling you, man. That's what I'm telling you. Listen, let's get into this though too. We're gonna start here, and as you guys may or may not know, what we've implemented in all of our shows, which has been working out. We have a list of topics and things that we want to talk about, so you guys know if you're brand new to the show and you want to know how kind of the structure of the show, which we're never going to be a fully super structured show. It's just not what we do. We pride ourselves on a loose conversation. However, what we want to do is add a little bit of the structure to it. What we're going to do is we have a list of topics of stories that we like and that we might want to talk about, and then we're going to give each person on the panel an opportunity to say, okay, well, I want to talk about this particular thing, and then we'll get into it. And we did take some questions from you guys also, so we will also get into that. So I'm going to start, though, and I'm going to start with the first topic, to me, I think, is going to be The Bad Batch. We're going to get into both episodes 1 and 2. They dropped. This will be a spoiler discussion of episodes 1 and 2. Now, full disclosure, I've seen about 5 episodes so far, because I got sent the link a long time ago, and I just haven't had an opportunity. Well, I've also not been super stoked on it, not because I didn't like the first season. Steph and I have talked about it kind of at length. Like, the first season, it was fine. It was if you liked The Bad Batch in general, from the Clone Wars and all that stuff, and you really dug the characters. I mean, I remember when they announced it at Celebration that they were doing, I think it was Celebration or was it Comic-Con? I can't remember. Either one, that they were doing a series. And the audience there went nuts. And I went, oh, yeah, I remember the Bad Batch from Clone Wars. Like, it was never a thing for me that I was so excited about. And then I watched the first season, and the stuff that I liked was the stuff like the Cad Bane stuff and the linking into the other lore. But the stuff that I didn't like, that a lot of people do love, is this Adventure of the Week thing that they do. And what it turned into by the end of season 1 was Rhea Perlman's character basically going, okay, guys, here's your mission. This is what you're going to do. And the reason why you got to do your mission is because you need this money. And if in order to have the money, you can get free, then you go. And that's exactly what happens in episode 1 of season 2. So I'm like, here we go again. However, what I loved about this episode was the inclusion of the almost like this World War II going to Hitler's castle type thing for Dooku and getting these artifacts, and that side of it I thought was fun. But it seemed very familiar, like I've seen it before. Steph, how did you feel about the 2 episodes of Clone Wars? I mean, of Clone Wars, Bad Batch.
It was definitely more of the same.
Yeah.
And I like that Star Wars in general is focusing on Dooku as a character more. I think that's cool. But the best thing they ever did was their first episode. It was like 70 minutes and about Order 66. Yep. And that has still kept me writing, where I'm like, maybe we'll get something like that again. Because that was epic.
Yeah.
And then, so I like the I feel like Echo's character is developing, and I like them like questioning internally, should they be going back for the rest of their brothers, or what are they really fighting for? But the adventure of the week thing it's fun, but that's kind of the start and finish of it for me.
You know, it's a great call also because, Kevin, the thing is that stood out to me, and I know it's not necessarily fair to do because you can't do this for every show, but you're coming off of Andor, right? Now, I know that the animated also you can combine for both adults and for kids, right? But coming off of Andor and then going right into this, yes, it is fun. Yes, it is adventure, but I don't know if it's because Andor had such a grip on me in particular, then jumping into this thing that doesn't really, so far in these 2 episodes, doesn't have like a big lock on into the canon. I was like, okay, it's like an appetizer before the other stuff hits. How did you feel about it overall?
I think it's going to be a good opportunity for the show to bridge us from the prequels to where we get with Andor.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a good opportunity. For me, Clone Wars ended in such a perfect way for me, with that Seven Samurai ending, with all of the graves of the 501st and Ahsoka looking at it, and then later Vader comes and sees the bear. You know, I'm getting goosebumps already just talking about it. That's how much I love that ending and the conclusion of that series. So when I saw the Bad Batch, I was like, it's the same animation, it's the same kind of character designs. And, like, if it was animated in any different kind of way, or if it was, like, live action, right? Like, D. Bradley Baker's got to be...
he's great, though.
He's cashing those checks, because he's fantastic.
He's amazing.
I did voiceover work when I was a kid, and I was on a show called Bobby's World. And I would sit next to Rob Paulson on one side, Frank Welker on the other, Howie on the other side. And these two, though, Rob Paulson, they would voice, like, 3 or 4 characters at once and at the same time. And... you know, it's a heavy workload. I remember I was just playing one kid, so I only had, like, one voice every time. But, like, D. Bradley Baker to go in there and, like, has to voice clones, but, like, different styles of clones that have different characterizations but with the same voice. It's really impressive. But it's just too much like Clone Wars 2.0. And it's like I don't know. I think that they could have done something else. So that said, the first episode and the second episode of season 2, I really like the destruction of Topoka City in the finale. So that was great. There are highs for it, but yeah, the adventure of the week, it just kind of doesn't grip me. I was watching it and I found myself looking at my phone a couple times, which I always feel bad. I'm like, I don't want to do that and I don't want to miss anything, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I felt the same. I mean, but it's funny because I think that the first 2, as opposed to like as I've watched the 5, not spoiling anything, I felt the first 2 are the strongest so far. But from what I also heard from people who have watched it is that it does start to play more into the lore and they go more into Omega stuff. Like that was the other thing I didn't like about that. I thought, oh, here we go again with 1 and 2 is that Omega decides she wants to do this thing and they're like, oh no, we got to find Omega again. And it's like, aren't we past? Isn't this like Boba Fett? This is Boba Fett. Dude, like the idea of what she's able to do should be like, no, I'm going to do this. But I did like a lot was that she overheard that conversation, that this is essentially Omega's fault that we're in this position. Although, even in that conversation, which I also enjoyed, was like, no, we had to save her. But it doesn't turn away the fact that we're in this peril because of that situation. I love that conversation. I thought that conversation was so awesome because it was like saying, no, we did the right thing, but don't be fooled. Like, this is why we're in this position. And so she's like, I got to save these guys and I got to get the loot. And that's what I really liked about both of these episodes, because I thought the arc for 1 and 2, and I'm glad that they did release it like this, because if it would have just ended with that first episode, then I think you would have really been like, oh, here we go. But because it ties up, because I like the whole thing that happened with the old man inside that, and like he was, and he could have turned into this whole thing, but he's just helped them survive. And you mentioned D. Bradley Baker, man.
Great. It's
so significant. Like, he's so talented, and how significant it is that each character is so different. Like, you can just tell. It's almost like when somebody does like an impression of somebody, and like you watch somebody like or a performance more so like Josh Robert Thompson or like Jamie Costa. Like, you watch those guys when they become the person that they're emulating, and like they can think like them, they can talk like them, and it's no different for like D. Bradley Baker when you're like, okay, we need you to do Hunter. You know, now it's Hunter. It's like they're basically in his head, and he's just a vessel. And so I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think he doesn't get talked about enough for what he does on this show. He every time you look at the credits, it's just D. Bradley Baker, everyone.
And like you could hear, if you had to shut your eyes, like you could hear Wrecker's voice, like, "Oh, I could stand in for the tank." Like you could hear Echo. Like there's just different nuance. You could hear Crosshairs for sure, which is my favorite character, by the way.
He's featured in 3, and I think 3 is actually probably the best so far. Yeah.
I don't want to say that I hate the show. There are things that I like about it, but like I just like the cloners. But yeah, D. Bradley Baker, you could totally like guess. And I did love that what you talk about that conversation with Omega setting, and it sets up the Last Crusade. Did you get vibes of the Last Crusade with like Elsa Schneider trying to reach
100%.
down?
Yes,
and I thought that I love that. That was like really cool. And I did like how in the opening you see her. The one thing it was like last season it felt like she did something she wasn't supposed to do.
Right.
Now we got to go save her. This time she's like Katniss Everdeen with this like cool like laser bow and arrow. Who doesn't want one of those now?
That thing was pretty awesome though, too. But Steph, what'd you think about Omega? Because Omega's your favorite. So
I love Omega.
What'd you think about her in the first two?
I think she's great. I think that it is time for her to be. I like that she's doing studies. She's obviously still young, and I like that they're implementing her studies and actually escaping. I think that's clever. But she's super capable, and I know that there was rumors. I think they were probably debunked about her being force sensitive. And I just want to know a little bit more about her. I feel like that's the interesting part. How was she created, and like how does it? And then I feel like the bigger picture, if they are going to go and try to save all of their brothers, that's cooler to me than an adventure of the week. Like, that's a common goal that they can all get behind.
And that's what I hope is going to happen, because what I will say is we've seen the trailer itself. We know Palpatine's in it. We know these other things and how it plays and how these other characters fit in. So that's what I'm curious about. And I think that, and I'll probably spoil one of the questions that comes in. I think that this is someone asks if we thought that the entire series should have been dropped at the same time as opposed to week by week like other shows. And I've just been on this heavy kick lately about how I think that binging in general is tougher to do because it just doesn't keep you in the conversation. However,
unless it's Emily in Paris and you're with my wife. we thought we could watch one a week like White Lotus. That lasted about 2 days.
Well, does it go week to week, that show?
No,
but that's not,
they dropped the thing.
Right, but what I mean is the reason why I have an issue with it is because it disappears out of the conversation.
Yeah, agreed.
But in a show like this, in a show like Tales of the Jedi, which they dropped all at the same time.
And Visions.
What's that?
And Visions.
Yeah, and Visions, right? In a case like this where it's not, this isn't a water cooler show. Like Andor could have been a water cooler show, or it was week to week. So it was the same thing. Obi-Wan, those Stranger Things, I think could be a water cooler show if you took it off of that binge model thing. But a show like this, I think, could have benefited from a binge overall. But then I don't know. But then again, I don't have an issue with them doing it this way because that's kind of what they do, and it needs to lead up into this 14 what did I tell you? 14 or 14 or 16? I can't remember what it was.
That's a lot.
That's the other thing. It's a lot.
Like the next 3 months.
Well, but that's why. So there's a lot of episodes. So I understand within those how many episodes, why you have so many. Like I think it's like episode 4 or 5. There's an episode that's straight up. It just seems like something I already saw in one of the prequel movies, but it's there because like, oh, well, we got 15 or 14 of these things, and it leads into The Mandalorian.
One idea I remember I had for Andor when people were first complaining about the awkward act outs, so some episodes ended where you're like, wait, that's the ending? He just got the data pad or whatever, which I didn't mind.
Which one?
Remember the end of one of the Andor episodes, he's at the campfire, they just do this homework and then it cuts. Where the other ones, like Never More Than 12 is the greatest like act out in TV history. But I always thought maybe if they released them in arcs, right? So it would be like almost like mini movies, but like here's your 3 episodes. Then everybody talks about it for a month. And then a month later, you do another 3 episodes. So maybe they could have done that with Bad Batch, get your first 5 episodes, then people mull over those for a month. And then, you know what I mean? So you're still getting the same amount in the same stretched amount of time, but maybe you're getting them more in bigger chunks. But shout out to Wilco, too, by the way, who's not going to falsify an order and gets shot for. Am I allowed to say it's? Yeah, it's spoilers.
That's spoilers. That's cool. Yeah, I mean,
and that was a reason why they end up going with the Stormtroopers.
Yeah, but that type of stuff.
It's great.
Those are the moments that I love with this show when they throw in those little moments that plays into the lore.
Yeah,
and they did that, and the clones in general played into that lore because it's like, how long were they around? if they're still around, and then as you just said, like there's these little things that they started doing. Like these guys are question orders. They age too fast.
Yeah.
This and that. So you start to see why, and they even talked about it's like, yeah, why are they disappearing? So did you enjoy the clone aspect of these 2 episodes, stuff?
Yeah, I did. I feel like it should feel like a bigger deal than it was, and maybe that's an execution thing, because I kept reminding myself like, oh, what is the bigger picture of this show?
Right.
You know, like with Andor and every other show, there's a big picture. They're
Right.
like doing something that's going to lead to a huge storyline that we know of or don't know of yet. This one, I was like, what is it? And then I'm like, oh yeah, it's the clones. It's the clones. Like that's a huge thing, but it just didn't feel as important.
Yeah. Yeah, I think because we've also seen it a bunch of times,
Yeah.
right? I do think that the bigger arc stuff will come later on, because as we I think it's very relevant. It's just so many episodes. So that's when you have that many episodes inside of a half an hour animated show, you're going to have these, and I think that what the thing is that they understand, and all the power to them for understanding this. There are a lot of people not like us who love this adventure of the week thing, and love the idea of just want to have this fun Star Wars show that I can watch, and just like it's like this little appetizer before everything else comes out, and it's just these cool little Star Wars adventures. It reminds me of Clone Wars, reminds me of these things, and they don't need all of every episodes to be this coherent story that is going to link from episode 1 to episode 14. They don't need that, and I think
Is that what you think the point of the show is?
I do. I think that they have gone to this kind of thing where they know that, look, we'll throw in these little bits of story that pops in, the Omega stuff, the clone stuff, the little, as Kevin mentioned, the little mention of the Stormtroopers, of how eventually they're going to overtake, and regular people are going to overtake the clones. They'll start to play that throughout the series, and these little things. But what they're hoping on is that people love the Bad Batch so much, the characters of the Bad Batch, they just want to see these guys and Omega go on these adventures together. And and this week, you know what we can do? We'll drop them on this planet. They'll do this thing with Dooku's castle, and in the next episode, we'll focus on Crosshair, and then another one we can pop in and do this and this and this, and they'll be on this adventure on this other planet. And to them, that's fun. To other people, they'll probably really like that. And I think that the people who really like Bad Batch, that's why they like it. I'm just kind of bored of the whole Rhea Perlman every time going, okay, guys, today, here's your bounty.
I wonder if they would have taken a cue from DC Animated. Like, DC Animation, if anybody knows, some of those stories are, like, amazing. Flashpoint Paradox, Gotham Knights, Harley Quinn. Like, but, like, the movies, it's like they're little animated movies. I wonder if Bad Batch would have been cool as, like, a sick, like, 2-hour animated movie. And then if that did well, then you do a sequel, stuff like that. So then you can kind of get rid of that filler aspect. Yeah. So, that said, I'm looking forward to where they go and how they're going to implement Palpatine, and I wonder what other, you guys have any ideas for other cameos that might appear?
Well,
later,
I mean,
that's not in the trailer.
So at this point, we're at we're right after Revenge of the Sith, and not too far off from that. So I mean, we've already gotten from I can't Ming Na who
Fennec Shan.
Fennec, we got Fennec already. We've got Cad Bane. So yeah, I do think we'll get some more people for sure, and people that will pop in. But I think that it's and we know we're getting Palpatine, right? As you said,
Bale. I think I saw Bale.
Which I think I'm just curious if it's going to play into because it's a Filoni produced show. I wonder if it's going to tell any story inside of these other the Filoni Favreau verse, because there's sections which I still think is silly, but the way that they're doing it is there's the TV verse, the live action verse is not one coherent thing. It's like Filoni and Favreau have that thing, then they have somebody do side adventures. It's what they do with movies, and then somebody else has their own side adventure. You've got Leslie Headland, who's got The Acolyte, who's it's 100 years before, whatever it is, and so it's disconnected. And then you've got Tony Gilroy doing his own thing. Then you had Deborah Chow doing her own thing. You had all this stuff. So they have. I wonder if Bad Batch plays into it at all. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. It's hard because I've been rewatching Rebels, and I watched the first episode of season 1 of Mandalorian again.
Okay.
Before I watched this, like I was watching some, and I think I was on the Sabine arc, and and then when I went to the Bad Batch, it made me think about how Rebels, I was invested in every single person's story. And I was like, oh yeah, I want to go to their planet. Like I want to know their background. Theirs is all the same, which is
right.
like,
We already know it.
Right.
We already know it. And it's like, so that's why I make the point, if you just like to watch their adventure, then I understand why you like it. I really do. And it's like, and it's not that I dislike the show. It's just, it just doesn't get me the way, like, because so Pete Scaretta had posted out from Slash. He had posted out, he's like, I want to be more excited for Bad Batch than I am. And I was like, I feel the same way. It's like, and I felt it watching it. I'm like, I'm gonna watch the whole series. I'm gonna watch this. I'm gonna wait for the bits to come in. I'm gonna wait for the things that tie in. Like I mentioned the stuff inside of the 1 and 2 that I really liked, that played into the Dooku stuff, the clone stuff, all that stuff. That's the stuff that I'm sure we're all gonna respond to. And then I'm very curious for you guys who are watching, if you're a big Bad Batch fan, what do you really enjoy about the show? Is it the idea that it's just this serialized kind of fun adventure every week, and you really like the characters and you like where it's going in general? Like, where do you stand on it? Like, why do you, if you love it, why do you love it? So I'm just curious in general, and I legitimately really want to know.
And for her Rebels thing too, I just want to say one thing about Rebels. What I loved about Rebels was it was a slightly different art style. You could tell it was slightly, but not only about the art style, the way it was, the way Kevin Kiner did the music, it felt more like original trilogy leaning, right? Whereas the Clone Wars was like prequel leaning, and it just felt like that shift over to the new, and it felt fresh and new enough. And I mean, aren't we going to lose our collective minds when we see Lothal in live action one day? And Ezra, right? It's like they've created that. And by the way, I did think that Wrecker was the droid on that Fresno planet from Obi-Wan. Remember the droid with the hammer behind his back? I remember thinking like, oh, that could be Wrecker. Like, how great would that be if he was just pretending to be a droid? But it wasn't. But I know that was kind of floating around the internet, and I kind of got behind that one. But the same way, like, I think that maybe with Bad Batch, it's going to get some time, but maybe by the end of this season, we'll change our minds about it a little bit and then geek out when we see them in live action.
Yeah. I hope. All right. So anyway, that was the Bad Batch season 2, episodes 1 and 2. We will be discussing them on Council. I think that what I'm going to be doing is probably just reviewing them here. I know that a lot of, like, when it comes to the regular shows, I do the full-on spoiler breakdowns by myself, and then we talk about it on Sith. I think that we're going to do the full episode discussion, spoiler reviews on this show. I did an immediate reaction on 1 and 2, but I think that the majority of the coverage will come on this show. So if you want to hear us talk about Bad Batch, then check us out every Wednesday where we will be talking about it. Now, we are going to move into some other topics. Obviously, we got a lot to talk about, but before we do that, I got to tell you guys about Athletic Greens, man. AG1. So it's really hard for me to keep up with a supplement routine in general that comes with different products. It's hard to know to start in general with supplements and who to trust, but AG1 makes it so much easier. I noticed right away that it helps me with, like, sleep benefits. It helps me with my energy, optimize immune system, all this stuff. And I don't know why people take a lot of different things. You just take one scoop, you put it in water once, and that's it. I put it in a bottle of water. I shake it around, and that's my day. AG1 was designed with ease in mind, so you can live healthier and better without having to do a lot. So I'm always looking for life hacks, which is Oh, sure. I'm always looking for life hacks, which is why I've come to love and trust AG1 by Athletic Greens. It's great, man. I absolutely love it. I think it's been one of these things that has changed my life. In general, I've talked to you guys about it many times over. You've heard me rave about AG1, and I'm so glad that they are back with the show, and we continue to have a great relationship with them because of what they're doing for everybody out there. Everybody who has been taking it from you guys has seen such an improvement. So if you're looking for an easier way to take supplements, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. You have to go to athleticgreens.com/bigthing, athleticgreens.com/bigthing. Make sure you check it out. And I've told you guys so many times, and you've been asking about it, like, how do I help the show? Well, help yourself out and get yourself some of the AG1 and use that code. That helps out the show tremendously. That helps out our show, and it will help yourself out. And I also want to know, once you do, hey, look, I tried it out. I liked it. And here's why I liked it. Tastes good too, by the way. All right. Now we're going to move into some other topics, and I'm going to put Steph on the board here first. Steph, there's a lot of topics, new things to talk about. What do you want to talk about?
I would love to talk about the new class of Stormtroopers in the Ahsoka series. The Ahsoka series, as you know, is my most anticipated show. I'm so excited about it. And her relationships with clone troopers has always been kind of my favorite relationship with the clone troopers, especially before the Clone Wars, or during the Clone Wars, I mean. So what is it? Like, who are they? We've never seen them before?
No, this is a brand new rumor out there that it is it just came out, and so here is the story as reported by comicbookmovie.com. It's saying Ahsoka will introduce a new class of Stormtrooper unlike any that we've seen in the Star Wars franchise before. So this is a rumor, grain of salt. And a new Ahsoka rumor sheds some light on unique plans for Grand Admiral Thrawn Stormtroopers in the Disney Plus series, and they sound unlike any that we've seen in the Star Wars franchise. Check it out. So as Lucasfilm continues to expand the Star Wars franchise by exploring what became of the galaxy post-Return of the Jedi, we're beginning to see new sides to the previously unexplored period between the original trilogy and sequels. Now, Making Star Wars via sffgazette.com is reporting that Ahsoka will include a very unique class of Stormtrooper. They start by reminding us that in The Rise of Skywalker, Kylo Ren visited a mysterious ape-like armorer who repaired his mask with what we'd later learn was Saracen iron. As a result, it was covered in red lines, a cool aesthetic, and a smart way to sell more action figures, with Stormtroopers in short supply after the Empire's defeat. It's said that those who report to Grand Admiral Thrawn will be decked out in rebuilt and reforged armor that is covered in gold or yellow cracks and veins. Apparently, this armor that has been reforged by the Night Sisters, and as the site explains, had their armor cracked like glass, and in an awesome showing of power, but put back together like Humpty Dumpty. Did the soldiers under those sets of armor die? Did the Night Sisters resurrect the Stormtroopers with rebuilt armor? They are compelling questions, particularly as the Night Sisters have previously used an undead army to counter the forces of Count Dooku and General Grievous. Whatever the case may be, the army will serve Thrawn, Balon, and Shin, Ahsoka's lead villains. The prospect of them essentially being zombies is exciting, and fans of the expanded universe will know that it's a concept that has been explored in a variety of ways in now non-canon tie-in material. It's become clear that this show is going to explore very different sides of this galaxy, with magic deepening the Star Wars franchise's mythology in new and in unexpected ways. That inevitably won't sit well with some fans, I don't know, but we will all have faith in the world and Dave Filoni's storytelling abilities. What are your thoughts on this intel? Let us know. All right, so I disagree with that last statement tremendously, that it's going to piss off some fans. Why? I think this is the smart move to do when you don't have to play inside of a place that we know. They're playing in the unknown regions. We know nothing about the unknown regions. You can, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to put, however you want to play it. Thrawn's out there in the unknown regions. It's similar to the old Thrawn novels that came out from Timothy Zahn back in the day. He had disappeared for a while and kind of building up his empire and wherever he was, and he's the new guy. I think he's going to be like the Thanos of this Filoni-Favreau universe now, and I think it's going to be this. I've been hoping for this big crossover event forever, and it seems like they're gearing towards that. That's what it seems like, I hope, and it just seems that way with all this building. So we'll start with Steph, who brought up the topic. You hear this, you hear about the idea of this new Stormtrooper and how Thrawn's kind of building out this army. Ahsoka was already your number one most anticipated series coming up in 2023. Does this further it?
Yeah, I love the Night Sisters too.
Yeah.
I love their inclusion in the Clone Wars, and if we get to see them in live action, that would be so cool. So that makes me more excited, and I love the use of we get the same whether it's animation or live action, we hear the same voices for the clone troopers, and I think that's cool. But I agree with you. I think it's like it doesn't need to be like that,
right?
Especially when you're dealing with the Night Sisters and there's the more witchcraft involved. Mm-hmm. Things can change. So I kind of love that.
What do you think? Have you heard this report?
Oh, you're seeing a live reaction of me geeking out. Like, that's my number one thing. Like that spy report, I don't know if you guys ever talked about it, so I won't get into the details. When I read that spy report, the big one from Ahsoka, what's going to happen?
No.
Yeah, I lost my mind like I did back when I was in 2002 and I was first reading spoiler reports on theforce.net. So, like, I'm really excited for Ahsoka. And, yeah, I love that they're going to explore uncharted territory and undead or whatever they're going to do with the Night Sisters. Seeing that in live action is going to be fantastic. And then for a crossover, which I think, and you'll disagree, the crossover should be a big film. Do all the shows, set it all up on the shows, and then have the crossover be an epic
It's not that I don't disagree. I've actually been saying for a while, like for a very long time, that I think that, and again, I apologize to fans who heard this a million times over, but to find out what film they want to do, I always thought it should be a series finale. Like for Mandalorian, I was used for the example. Like if they know that Mandalorian is going to go, we're at season 3, we know it's going to go 5 seasons, and then let's say it's 2026 and they're looking for a movie to do in 2026. Well, guess what? The season finale of Mandalorian season 6 is December 14th. And then on December 21st, in theaters, the series finale is going to be in theaters, and then that will be on Disney Plus in February. And they can put the budget towards that season, film the thing, within it, and do all that. So big crossover event. The problem with the big crossover event on film with all that is they don't have enough. They don't have their ish together yet in a way that I think they could coordinate all that. As I said before, with all the different things that they have now, if it's a Filoni Favreau movie at the very end, maybe, but I don't think that they're going with that, and I think Kathleen Kennedy will be too scared of the fact that she has to relate on everybody to watch the shows, even though they're some of the most popular shows on TV. Yeah. But I think it's too scary for them, and we'll get into the Lindelof thing in just a minute. But yeah, I think that I think it would be a great, in theory. It's not I disagree with it. I just don't think it's realistic.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because I know you prefer the TV over the movies. But I know you mentioned how like you're saving Rogue One for the series finale of Andor, and I'm kind of doing the same thing. Yeah. So like it would be, imagine if you've never seen Rogue One and then you see all of Andor, and then you have this epic 2.5 hour movie in the theaters, and you're nervous because you're so invested with all these characters.
Yeah, it's not that I prefer the TV over the movies. It's that I prefer the plan and the investment inside of the TV over the movies, because they're just kind of throwing things to the movies, as opposed to that where I'm already invested in the characters, I'm already invested in the plan. So yeah, give me a movie, I'll go out and see it in the theater. Sure, absolutely, why not? So no, it's not that. It's when they don't know what they're doing with the movies, then they throw it in there, and it's like, okay, here comes a movie that it's just going to either piss people off, or it's going to be like, it's like that type of thing. That's what I don't want. It's not that I don't like seeing Star Wars on the big screen. I mean, are you kidding me? I'd love to, especially after like having an experience in the theater like Avatar recently, and in going and being able to watch a big Star Wars movie in IMAX again. Who the hell doesn't want to see that? I want to be as invested in the story as I am in the spectacle.
Going back to Obi-Wan, would you have preferred, because I know you had your problems with Obi-Wan, would you have preferred it now, with 2020 hindsight, to it be a major release in the theaters?
I know a lot of people feel that way, but no, I would have preferred Obi-Wan with better writing.
Yeah,
I would have preferred Obi-Wan with like they just did a whole how it should have ended. Do you ever watch that series? So Jamie Costa plays both Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon.
He was such a good Qui-Gon.
He's great, and so they just addressed the simplest stuff. And it's like just bad. It's the bad writing. It's like Vader standing outside with the Inquisitor, and he's like, "Well, you shouldn't go down there." He's like, "I'm gonna go down there. You guys we have tons of ships. You go." And he's like, "And then send the TIE fighters, because that would have just killed everybody." So that's part one. The other thing is, Anakin has his mask off and he can't breathe. He's dead. He's after a little while, he just passes out and dies. But it's like he starts talking about how irrelevant they almost made Vader. Like he's doing all these things, and he didn't hurt anybody. He's like, so I basically stabbed this Inquisitor, and she didn't die. And then Qui-Gon goes, "Wait, you can live after getting stabbed with a lightsaber?"
That's what I was no one told me.
He's like, well, she healed herself with the Force. He's like, wait, you can heal yourself with the Force from a lightsaber? How come no one told me about this? But it's like little things like that, and then the Leia running around in the woods and all this.
Never forget.
It's so yeah. So
that running around in the woods is not in my Obi-Wan movie cut.
No,
Brandon.
Well, you just said it right with your cut. Your cut proved that it could have been a series. The cuts out there proved it could have been there's a lot of stuff inside of the Obi-Wan stuff that works. It was just the writing it's bad. Like the writing in that show is bad.
Yeah.
And when you compare it to and again, when you look at something like Andor, and you look at it, and I don't want every show to be like Andor, but I think that one of the reasons that when Star Wars has always been the best, when it is, I'm not saying there shouldn't be humor in Star Wars, there should, but when it's taken seriously inside of these things, actually, it doesn't feel. It's not concerned with Ahsoka, but because it's not with Mandalorian, but if it does feel too much like an animated show, and it doesn't feel, and it feels like, this would have been better off as animated. Maybe an Obi-Wan animated show would have been better. I don't know, with this kind of writing. I don't know, but because we were dude, we were saying this was going to be some of the best Star Wars like ever if they did it right.
Yeah.
And it turns out Andor was, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Who would have thought it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. No, I still think a series. I've seen many commenters say that to me. See, don't you think it should have been a movie? No, I don't. I just think it should have had better writers.
Yeah.
I really hope with the Ahsoka series that they keep Thrawn like that military evil genius that he like really focus on that instead
Filoni,
of
he will.
Yeah. Instead of just making the villain one dimensional.
I think Filoni understands it. I think that what I hope to see is that you get more of the Thrawn from the books than in Rebels. I thought he's more effective in the books. He was more one-note villain in Rebels than he was. I mean, he was still calculating in Rebels.
Yeah, he was calculated.
He was, but not as much as he was in the books. Like in both the canon books and the non-canon books, Thrawn is scary. Thrawn is to me even more like intimidating than the Emperor at times because he's just because he's so cool.
There's no one more terrifying than someone you know is 4 steps ahead of you every step of the way.
Right.
You know,
right. And I want to see that.
Yeah.
I want to see that, and that's what I want to see inside of this. So I think it's going to be pretty interesting. So to see all that stuff that Ahsoka could serve as the live action Rebels, and the idea of all this stuff, and to introduce Thrawn and introduce this whole new. I think it's refreshing to put it in a place that we don't have to. It's not going to cross over with the Mandalorian stuff because they're in the unknown regions. So maybe it comes back later on. That when Thrawn has to attack later on, when he comes back from the unknown regions, sure, but you don't need it right away, and you can build off a couple seasons
with this new army too that you're just talking about, to bring it back to the Stormtroopers, like something that these people have never dealt with or seen. This new force of evil that everybody has to come together and fight, kind of making it your Avengers, like the Avengers style movie.
Well, Kevin, let's stay with you, man. So let's go. We got some topics up there. What do you got?
Oh yeah, I want to cover our newest KOTOR animated episode is released. That's on the list.
Stop this.
Okay.
Promote it on your show.
Let's go with the Lindelof. I'm kind of excited that there's a movie shooting soon, following up with that movie talk. So
yeah. So what do you know about it so far? Do you know anything about the topic at the moment, or you want to?
I'm literally asking to choose the topic
right now because you don't know enough about it. All right, here we go. So let's get into this topic. And this is Lindelof. And we had talked about this for quite a while about Lindelof doing this movie. We remember a long time ago in Sith Council where Jeff Snyder had reported on it. We called Snyder to hear about it. He's like, I heard he's having this meeting, that he's going in there and doing this. Wow. And then turns out that he's absolutely doing the movie. And then as we started talking about it more, and then Love and Thunder came out and all this stuff. And I said to Steph, I go, that Taika movie is not, because Kathleen Kennedy was out there going, it's happening in 2023. It's like, there's no chance that movie happens 2023. She's like, it's going to come out by the end of it. And they asked Taika, he's like, I don't know about that. And then it's like, and I'm like, there's no way. I do not think Taika should do a Star Wars movie. I think he should go back to doing Mandalorian and other things too, because he's just stretched too thin, and it's not the movie you lead with. I go, there's no way you lead with it. I go, I guarantee you they're going to lead with Lindelof, and it looks like, Steph, we might have been right, because the rumor is that, this is again from our buddy Miguel Fernandez, the rumor is that Damon Lindelof and Charmin Obaid-Chinoy's Star Wars film is to start shooting in April. If that's the case, I mean, you're probably looking at a potential 2025 release date. Mm-hmm. I would guess this is probably going to be, if they are shooting it, I would guess that Star Wars Celebration, that they're going to announce this movie with a release date of 2025, because it'll already be, if it's starting to shoot in April, that's right when Star Wars Celebration is, and they're going to have some news about it. So let's see. This is the story. We are kicking off 2023 with an exciting rumor for all Star Wars fans, particularly for those who have been longing for a return to the big screen. For those who haven't been keeping up for the past few months, Lucasfilm is actively working on a new feature film that will be co-written by the Watchmen and The Leftovers creator Damon Lindelof and directed by Ms. Marvel's veteran Charmin Obaid-Chinoy. According to the website World of Real, the upcoming project would be gearing up for production start this April. News about the film, which has yet to be confirmed about Lucasfilm, first started circulating back in March of 2022. The project started picking up after some steam after the summer when, according to reports, Lucasfilm set up a writer's room that Dave Filoni may have visited. Justin Britt Gibson will be co-writing with Lindelof. The film will reportedly be set after the events of The Rise of Skywalker, and characters from the sequel trilogy could even make an appearance. Daisy Ridley has been suspiciously posting pictures from the Lucasfilm headquarters in recent months. She is rumored to have popped by numerous times. Another rumor from renowned insider Daniel Rickman pointed out that the film will feature a new set of leads, with the filmmakers looking to cast a woman of color as the lead. So, World of Reels is a reputable website in the world of independent and low-budget movies, though they also cover the entire film history. We are taking this rumor for now. We are taking this as a rumor for now until more evidence appears, but the project has been in the oven for at least a year, so the timeline seems to match up. If it is indeed true that they will be filming this spring, other Hollywood trades would surely get wind of it quickly, and we'll have more news to report in the coming weeks. It wouldn't be the first time in recent memory Lucasfilm starts a project without the world knowing anything about it. News on the Book of Boba Fett came out no more than 2 to 3 weeks before cameras started rolling, and while Skeleton Crew had been in the news cycle for months, it wasn't until late May during Star Wars Celebration that we learned about the title, lead actor, and the timeline. If nothing else, this marks the beginning of an exciting year for Star Wars. We've got Bad Batch Season 2, Mandalorian Season 3, Star Wars Celebration is in April. Lindelof and Chennai's film will shortly be officially announced, and Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew are coming in later in the year. Star Wars Visions is also making a comeback during the spring with a second batch of animated non-canon series. So, lot to take in there. Kevin, what stands out to you, bud?
It stands out to me is that I didn't know I knew he was doing a movie, but I didn't know the timeline. But it looks like they're going to move forward past Rise of Skywalker, which I think is going to be great. I had my IG brother in arms. He's not here today. I remember him talking about, introducing a new cast of characters, right, as they did in 77. He kept saying, oh, when's the trilogy? And you were like 1977. But like creating a new cast of characters, they might be able to do that where we fall in love with them. And then if you have, Rey in there as like a mentor or whatever she does, I don't know if these new cast of characters will have Jedi involved, if John Boyega would come back. But I'm excited to see where they go with it because, as much as my dream movie would be that you were going to say they were going to do a Clone Wars movie with de-aged Hayden and make it like a Apocalypse Now. But since we're not getting that gritty Clone Wars movie, this is the next best thing. It's like going out. It's going to be after Rise of Skywalker. If they can't go to KOTOR and do a KOTOR movie, then let's go beyond and see where we go, where this uncharted path. So I'm kind of excited. I'm excited for Rey too. Like I liked Rey, the character Rey. So I'm excited to see if that rumor turns out, if her posts are regarding that. It'll be interesting to see where we go with that.
What do you think, Steph?
I think this is great. I think I actually have a good feeling that this is going to happen. It feels like it's been talked about for a long time without any sort of speed bumps other than time, obviously, but not like he's off the project, he's on the project. It seems pretty clear. And I really loved Miss Marvel. I thought it was shot incredibly well. And so I think that this pairing could be really interesting. I feel like Miss Marvel is a little bit more kiddish in comparison to Damon Lindelof's career and his shows, and I think that that's a good mix for Star Wars.
Yeah. So there's a lot that I like about this report. Obviously, I think Lindelof will get it done, and he'll get it. I mean, I think that you say, okay, so you're starting us off here. I have the same concerns that I always have with the film division. It's like, is there a plan? It seems like there might be with the writer's room and the idea of it. It doesn't necessarily mean I like that they're not saying, well, we're doing a trilogy. I like that. It's but what it sets up is the possibility of saying, okay, inside of these characters that we're introducing, there might be an idea to spin off of certain characters or continue stories throughout, this timeline. If people like it, also is the smart thing to do where it's like, if it doesn't do well, then they can go somewhere else. But if it does do well, then they can keep exploring in that option. But have the plan ready though, in case that it does work. Don't do that problem of saying, oh, yeah, we got this movie coming out in this, and then one goes, I don't like that character. That character sucks. I don't want to go with this character anymore. And they go, well, they didn't like that character, so let's move on and do something else. Maybe they find out that they introduce another character inside of that series, and then maybe your instincts serve you well. And it's like, okay, we think that this character of X is really going to land with people. We have this whole idea of where this character can go and the story can go. If it does land, let's, we have a treatment. We have this stuff kind of ready to go. So maybe that's the overall idea, but they start shooting in April. If the rumor is true, it makes sense to then announce it in London, to talk about it or what it is. It'll then, if they started shooting, then you'll probably hear that it's going to come out in December of 2025. If I'm a betting man, which I am, I would say December 2025 is when this movie is released. As far as Daisy Ridley goes, I think the reason why you need Rey in this is to keep, this can't be another movie where, and I love the Andor, but another movie without any of the Jedi and without the Force again, and without this, and one of the biggest disappointments with the new trilogy is that what everyone thought was that Luke had been set up to build out this Jedi Academy that we're going to see. He did it. We just didn't see it. And then they all got killed by Kylo Ren. We didn't see that. We just heard it off screen. Rey now is in a position to build the Jedi Academy, and she's in a position to build out and teach people to create new Jedi for us to fall in love with. And she doesn't have to be the lead character. She can just be the character who's training, and we're 5 years into the future. She's training people in the Force. She's done it more successfully than Luke. Fine. She did it more successfully than Luke? Yeah, because we don't want to have all the fucking Jedi get killed again.
Yeah.
So stop complaining about it now. And it's like we need her to be able to train the Jedi, so we don't have to have this other thing like, and then another Jedi turned and killed all the Jedi. It's like, no. It's like,
then that would be 3 times.
Again, it's like, so, but then it goes against everything that was said in Rise of Skywalker. Who cares? Somehow Emperor Palpatine came back.
Did you ever read the Jedi Academy trilogy, the old school?
I remember
novels?
it. Yeah.
Yeah, where they set it up on Yavin, and like, I mean, it was great because you like got to know. I mean, they ended up having a character kind of turn on everybody and create some havoc. That was with Kip Durin for you Legends fans. But they had a great trilogy of a lot of the training. You got to see like what Luke was doing with them on Yavin and how they repurposed the old Rebel bases into like the training and stuff like that. So if this does delve into I mean, they always take little things from the EU, and kind of repurpose it. So it would be really cool to kind of get to see that Jedi Academy. And look, maybe someone from that academy does end up having different thoughts and then turns bad.
Which is fine.
Yeah, he goes off on his own, and then you have later the conflict. But I would really look forward to seeing something like that with Rey involved in that.
Yeah, which is fine. Like if you have someone who turns and goes to the dark side, that's part of Star Wars, right? It's a matter of like, but it doesn't need to wipe out all the Jedi again. That's what's so attractive about the Acolyte. I want to see all the Jedi running around trying to battle this thing that's happening within, and they don't even know what's really happening. They think they're fighting one of their own. They can't see the Sith threat because they don't know the Sith come back until Phantom Menace. But that, I love the idea that we're getting the High Republic, and that's why to me, as you have Ahsoka as your number 1, the Acolyte is my number 1 because of it's just the idea of seeing all of that, and the idea we haven't seen the Jedi in full force. We saw them in the prequel for a little bit, but even then, that was just kind of. You had it for a little bit, and then it was gone just like that. Like I wanted to be able to live in there for a little bit. That's why I always thought the Old Republic in that era would have been such a great idea to do. But yeah, I'm so curious overall. But I want to get to one more topic, and then I want to get to your questions because we're running a little over time. But so the other topic that I really want to get to today is the topic of Ron Howard being asked about Solo. And this is going to break John Hoey's heart.
Oh. I almost chose that topic, but I wanted to not hurt John Hoey's sad day and make his day sad.
I'm sure, but I mean, this is such kind of like a no-duh type of story, and that's Ron Howard, the director of the first Solo movie and obviously legendary director in general, was asked about Solo Part 2. Solo Part 2. Where is he? And so this is what Ron Howard had talked about when asked about the actual possibility of Solo 2 becoming a thing. And
while you're, I'll just add to I loved Solo. By the way, I really did, and I mean I didn't name my daughter Kira after Solo, but when my wife was like, we're coming up with names. One of them was Sophia, and then she was like Kira, and in my head I was like, I really like that name, and like part of me was like, because I mean, it wasn't because of Solo. We didn't name her after Kira, right. But I do think that they nailed. I mean, they nailed a lot of the character of Han. For me, I know that not everybody agrees with that. So I'm kind of bummed that they released it in the summer. Why would you release it in the summer? Star Wars is a Christmas movie.
That was an Iger thing.
Release it in Christmas, and I'm telling you, it would be a different story.
Well, this is what I said to before we get into this. Is what I said to Hoey because I was talking to him on a DM. I said, I understand the love for it. If you have a love for it, great. And I think the second half is far superior than the first. And I said, but my question is this, not selfishly, and I'll ask you, someone who likes the movie.
Yeah.
Do you think it would be smart to put a Solo movie out right now for Lucasfilm?
Like, are you talking about a Solo
Part 2?
Yeah.
Do you think? No.
Oh, no,
That's
not now.
that's what I mean. So like, I understand people who really liked it and said, "Oh, I would love to see that continue." Maybe as a series or anything too. But if you're a Star Wars fan, you're rooting it for it to succeed. In no world should, even if you love the movie, no world should you go, "Oh, I hope that they make part 2." You're asking for failure. There's no chance that a movie is going to succeed in the theaters, especially not now. And if you want to put it on Disney Plus, or you want to do a Crimson Dawn series and you want to bring all them back as Han Solo, fine, so be it. But I think that it was just, it makes no sense, like the whole make Solo 2 movement and all that stuff. It's like, but that's, and I understand for selfish reasons you want to see it.
Yeah.
But as far as a Star Wars fan, it's not going to do good.
And you can't have Solo see anything about Maul. And, like, that would be the one thing if you wanted to make Solo 2, like, this big smash is, like, teasing that Maul will be back in live action. But Han at A New Hope is, like, that's a bunch of,
Right. It
basically
should have been
thinks it's
Crimson
mumbo
Dawn.
jumbo.
It should have done a Crimson Dawn series, and I think it was rumored at one point. But let me get to this here. This is Ron Howard. Ron Howard has once again broken silence regarding the major fan push for a sequel, saying it's currently not a Lucasfilm priority. Despite the strong following Solo, a Star Wars story has gained since it opened, it's safe to say that the prequel anthology film failed to rake in the bucks, with many spectators opening to check it out months later at home. Much has been talked about what went wrong. Maybe it was the lackluster marketing campaign. Maybe it fell short to its proximity to Avengers Infinity War. But the reality is that sequels or follow-ups of sorts, theatrical or televised, never materialized. Solo co-writer John Kasdan recently acknowledged that the Make Solo 2 Happen movement and briefly discussed some follow-up ideas, but admittedly the ball is in Lucasfilm's court. Now, while speaking to NME director, Ron Howard has added his thoughts to the current conversation around the movement, making it very clear that as far as he knows, Lucasfilm has no plans to explore further young Han Solo adventures, but never say never. Ron Howard says, the only discussion that I'm aware about for a sequel for Solo is coming from the fans. I don't think it's a Lucasfilm priority as I understand it, but there's some great characters launched, and the folks from Lucasfilm love the fans and really do listen, so I would never say never, but I'm not aware of any concrete plans right now to extend the story or deal with that particular set of characters. It's not the first time Howard has discussed the lack of development on that front, nor his disappointment with the film failing to click enough with moviegoers. However, he's admitted in the past that maybe exploring an origin story that not enough fans had asked for wasn't the right move for Lucasfilm and the Star Wars franchise at the time. We could argue 3 years into Disney Plus Star Wars series that Solo would have been perfect fit for the limited series format. Agreed. But the development of the film reportedly started shortly after Disney acquired Lucasfilm, far before plans for the Disney Plus began to take shape. So there's been some creative life coming from Solo, though. Kira, Han's first love and ultimate leader of the Crimson Dawn criminal organization, has become a key Star Wars character in the OT era, though recent comics and the Lando comic series is still on the table despite the lack of movement around it. All right. So tons
Disney
of stuff.
Plus series, you mean? Lando Disney Plus series.
Yeah, Lando Disney Plus is still, that's another one that was announced and never heard a peep about it. But I still think stay away from Solo 2 as a movie. Never make that movie. Never. But a Crimson Dawn series sounds intriguing. And again, if you want to bring, like, I like Alden Ehrenreich as an actor. I don't think that he hit the Han Solo beats. I know yourself and other people disagree with that. I have nothing against him at all. But I say if they did a Crimson Dawn series and I brought him back, so be it. That's great. But I don't think a Solo thing is what this. You want to go past it. They want to get away from the idea of trying to get a familiar character again, like they did with Boba Fett, like they did with the new trilogy. Get away from it. Do a Crimson Dawn series. You bring Kira in. You can have her lead the series, and then have this actual crime thing that we've been hoping for that we thought we were going to get in Boba Fett. I don't know, Steph. Where do you stand on it?
Well, it's interesting reading this story coming off of the Lindelof story because my mind just gets really excited to see where Star Wars takes the next step of their storytelling, because Star Wars, it's hard to talk about because it's in a league of its own in terms of how long it's been around and everyone's favorites. But if you're thinking about the new generation, it's a big ask to have them fully invested in the original characters moving forward to all their stories. Kids are now seeing Avatar 2 and the technology of it. When they see the original trilogy, that's a big ask for kids of the Gen Z generation to be like, yeah, like, never mind the looks of it, the story I really get. I think that they need to go into a completely, like, set the stage of what Star Wars for the new generation is going to be with the new characters that you spoke of. So I think Crimson Dawn would be cool, but it's like, I just feel like they're...
Time to move on.
Yeah, it's time to move on. We have The Mandalorian, we had Andor. I think these are all great. We have Ahsoka, but I think in the movie space, it's time to move on.
Yeah, and I think that even, Kevin, what they've done, and this is what will piss off those make Solo 2 happen fans, is I think that there was also a time when this deepfake technology was not as good as it is now. Yeah. If Han Solo pops up in a series... now it's a cameo, which is what I like to see him like Luke did in Mandalorian. I would want to see deepfake Harrison Ford. I wouldn't want to see Alden Ehrenreich. I want to see deepfake Harrison Ford because they have the technology now to do it. They did it well with Luke, and I think that you can have somebody, whether it's a Jamie Costa do the voice or Anthony Gruber do the voice of the performance, and then actually have him in it just for like a quick scene. I'd prefer that. Now I know, and again, I'm very aware that a lot of you guys love it. I'm just giving you my opinions on it in general, or thoughts. But like, that's if someone was like, this is what you needed to do, and we're going to give you, hey, the fans are going to be happy. You want to do a Solo 2 movie? I'd be like, absolutely not. put something else into make a Crimson Dawn series. Put a deep fake Han Solo in there for a scene or two, and let's make a new series. What's your time like? Did you already film World Girls today?
No, not yet.
Are you going to film it today?
Yes.
All right. Do you have
like
because I wanted to get
8 more minutes?
All right. I want to get to some questions.
I can leave if you guys need to finish it.
I'll be here. I could be here for 2 more hours.
Well, I want to get let's get some. You tell me when you got to leave stuff because I want to get because we had a lot of questions that come in and I don't want to skip over them. All right. So this is from Sir Dork 730. Any hopes for Bad Batch season 2 adding to the overall canon? Or do you think it will just be a fun mission of the week season? Either way, I'll love it. So he answered a lot of questions what we just posed before. It's like there are people who just love the series, love the adventure week, and just want to tune into this appetizer going into. And I think he's one of those people that it's responding to. I will say this, though. I do think it's going to add to the lore. I just don't think in the way that we're enough to where you're not checking your phone a couple different times, but I do think it's going to add to the lore.
What are their ultimate fates? That's the one thing I'm like excited for. Like, are they? Some of my favorite episodes in the Clone Wars was Clone Cadets, which was the origins of this group of soldiers that end up being in this episode called Rookies, where they're like in this outpost and it's this thing where they have to hold it off, and that's where Echo comes from. Like Echo survives that, and that was a great little thing where they all died. One guy had like the grenade in his hand and held it off until it blew up and killed all the droids and stuff. So, what do you guys think? Bad Batch, what's their ultimate fates? Because maybe that would obviously add into the canon to answer that question.
I think the majority, maybe, what's his name? Who's your favorite? Crosshair. He might die. Everyone else survives. They're going to try to push to season 3. What do you think?
I think they might die except for Omega, but I don't know what they're going to do with her. I don't know.
Do you think it's for season 2?
I don't think they're going to have a season 3.
I didn't think they were going to have a season 2. And they did. So I think they're going to push to it. That's it. What other animated series do they have? They not. I wish they would go Tales of the Jedi, like full series. Yeah. I wish they would go Tales of the Sith full series. That would to me would be
Tales of the Sith.
That would be so much more intriguing
Darth
to me.
Bane, Revan.
Oh yeah. Oh, dude, don't even start. All right, here we go. Here's the next one. Gavin Key, do you think that they will ever further develop the storyline of Omega being Boba's sister, either in the Bad Batch, Book of Boba Fett, or maybe something else? I think that they'll attach something to her, like her overall being and of where she came from and how she plays into it and who she's related to. I think Boba Fett might make a cameo. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think he might. And then there's this question of like chosen family or real family, and then that's a good character arc for her.
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe that might be the secret cameo we see in Bad Batch at some point, because like it's just too good of a story not to tell. He has a twin sister.
Yeah,
like Boba Fett has a twin sister. Yeah, exactly. So like you're gonna want to see them meet like at some point, and siblings and all that. So yeah.
All right. So moving on then to the next question here. This is from Charlie Uptown Music. What are your thoughts on Obi-Wan not making the Disney Plus most watched show list of 2022 domestically? And do you think that Boba Fett is a more popular character since it made the list? I think having Luke and Mando appearing gave the show a strong hold on the list. He just said it at the end. The reason why it made the list was because Boba Fett made the list was because of that episode of Luke and the episode of The Mandalorian were arguably, like that Luke episode was arguably one of the best Star Wars related materials in a subpar TV show. But those 2 episodes were fantastic, and the ratings for that episode was probably through the roof. So I think that he nailed it. That's absolutely why Boba Fett made it. It wasn't. I don't think it's a more popular character. I just think there wasn't I bet you the last episode of Obi-Wan, because that fight did pretty well. But I think, and the Vader episode when he first shows up, I bet you did pretty well. But the other stuff the other stuff they tried to introduce just didn't land with fans.
It just goes to show, like, thinking back to, like, there was no way that a movie called Batman v Superman should have not done like $2 billion, $2 billion or whatever. How do you have a show? And by the way, I do actually like the Kenobi show. I don't know what camera I'm looking at, but I like the Kenobi show actually as a whole. I made that movie out of my love for it, and I just wanted to see, with my friend Brandon, what we can do to like make it smaller or like tighter and include the music that it's missing from it. But for me, I just lost my train of thought here. What were we talking about?
Obi-Wan, as far as
the more popular character.
The more popular. So how do you have a movie or a show with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Vader round 3 not make that list? And that goes to show that it just wasn't gripping enough. Was it in the marketing? Perhaps. Maybe in the marketing, they should have showed more of the Vader showdown with Obi-Wan, but I know they wanted to kind of keep that a surprise. But that kind of bums me out because I really do like Hayden's return. I thought that he did great, and I think there were some really strong things about that show. And I don't know, they're very reactionary, right? You just talked about it earlier that, Taika's movie might not come out now because of Love and Thunder. And now Duel of the Fates, episode 9, which might have been we don't know, but it might have been a better Star Wars ending for the sequel trilogy. That didn't come out because of Book of Eli didn't do well, right? It's reactionary.
Well, that's
and Leia, and not Leia, but Carrie Fisher passing away kind of made that script.
Yeah, but both the Taika stuff and the Colin Trevorrow, that's not a guarantee that's the reason why. It might have had a factor, but I was, in the case of Taika, I was talking personally, and I think that if you're Lucasfilm, on the idea that this movie is not Love and Thunder, is not loved by fans, and that's you're going to lead with that it might have something to do with it for sure, but I don't think it's the only standing factor. Yeah. What do you think, Steph? All this goes like it doesn't. So Obi-Wan, as we said, we reacted to the trailer when it came out. We were saying this could be the best thing since Empire. We were clearly mistaken. Why didn't it make the list?
That's actually shocking to me because I thought the numbers were pretty exceptional for the show, if I remember correctly. I think there's no discussion. Obi-Wan's one of the most popular characters in any franchise ever, period. SZA just came out with an album and had an Obi-Wan line. Like in pop culture, Obi-Wan is
it's Obi-Wan.
Yeah, it's Obi-Wan. I thought Obi-Wan as a show was better than Boba Fett.
I did too,
but the 2 episodes were like, if you watch Mandalorian, you have to watch those.
Yep.
And if you're a fan of Ahsoka too, you're watching those as well.
Agreed. And I think that's exactly what it turned out.
When we were younger, though, I feel like nobody, and the kid in the playground, and I'm aging myself here, but when we were kids with the action figures, no one was excited to be Alec Guinness Obi-Wan, but everybody was excited about Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Like, but I get to be Boba Fett on the playground,
All right, here's the next one. Impulse Films. I have no clue what the future holds for Darth Vader in the future of Star Wars shows. For the sake of this question, if Lucasfilm decides that they wanted a Vader series and Disney approved it, would you like to see it in live action or animation? While I love Hayden Christensen as Anakin, I think it would be great to see his internal struggle with flashbacks of Padme, exploring it in an animated format just to be as powerful. Clone Wars, Rebels, Bad Batch, Tales of the Jedi. I'm sure this might not be a priority for them at this time, but I think there's still a lot of ground you could cover with Anakin, Vader, pre-original trilogy. Thank you for your time. P.S. When are you guys making this Flirt and Flouse series? I pay Brett too much money for that. So when it comes to the animated or live action question, my answer to that would be either. I would love to see if it was an animated series. They could do a lot, especially what he said. They could do like that Lords of the Sith type of thing where you could see the internal struggle. There's not to say that because he's behind the mask, you couldn't still do that. You could still do. You don't have to see Hayden Christensen in that suit during that time. It could be anybody who's 6'3", 6'4", who can get the mannerisms down and do all this stuff. I mean, look at Rogue One. That wasn't Hayden Christensen. Yeah. So you could do that series. I'd love to see a live action series. I still stand with the idea that I don't think that Disney will ever lead with a villain. I think that they're too nervous about it, too scared about it. Even though Acolyte's going to have a lot of Sith-led thing, they'll wind up being like some main character Jedi who is ultimately the star of the show or is the good guy. They're not going to do a Breaking Bad, Sopranos thing, which I wish that they would. For Star Wars, would be amazing, but it's just not a Disney-led thing. So I don't think it's going to happen at all. But if it did, I'd be okay with either. Steph, where do you go?
Yeah, I'd be okay with either. I'm a Hayden Christensen fan,
Yeah.
so I would love to see him. And I don't think that we need to have looks pretty good. So I feel like I don't need him to be as young as he was when they filmed the the trilogy with him, the sequel trilogy. So I would prefer live action, but then again, I don't need this show in general. I don't need an Anakin series. Right now.
Anakin or Vader?
Vader.
There's a difference.
Yeah, that's true.
Because a Clone Wars, going back to what he said before, a Clone Wars series in live action, it would be interesting, but we've seen it already in animated, right?
Apocalypse Now.
I know.
Space.
It'd be interesting, but the Vader series of him, the internal struggle of him being Vader, the way that they did in like the Vader comics, but I just think going off of your previous point, it's like there's so many other stories to tell right now. You don't need it, but I would be also. I think that one would make the top list if they did it the right way.
Yeah.
If they got the right director to do it, and they were
that Vader comic series you're mentioning too has some really good storytelling,
dark stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he even envisions what would have happened if he turned good, and you could have this whole scene where he actually returns to the council and he kills the Emperor and then returns and gets on bended knee in front of Obi-Wan and says, "Sorry, man, like." There's some really gripping things, and he's like this close to thinking maybe I'll do that. And then the dark side, he just you don't know the power of the dark side. You know?
Here's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that they get whether it's either because there's rumors that Kathleen Kennedy is taking off after Indiana Jones. Okay, part one. Part two is maybe they bring some more people in, executives to find someone. I'm hoping someone walks into that office and goes, "Okay, look, we have all these stories in comic books like this Vader thing. Let's do a 2-hour movie based off of the comic. Let's take elements from the comic, put it in the damn thing. Not everybody has read the comic. The same way I always use the Harry Potter example, right, for novels. Yeah, we knew everything that was going to happen in the Game of Thrones Red Wedding stuff. If you read it before, still looked great on TV.
Right.
Take the stuff that worked from the novels. Don't be scared of it because it's a novel, and put it on the screen.
And the games they can do.
Games, all
I
of that
totally
stuff.
agree with you.
Yeah.
They can do a Knights of the Old Republic
Easy.
movie
Series
and preserve that big twist that I won't. I mean, it's been out for so long, but they could preserve that. And like you said, the audience too that knew about the Red Wedding or that knew about Harry Potter, they were respectful. They weren't going online and saying, "Well, the Red Wedding's coming up." Like, no, everybody was like, "Wait till you see it. It's going to be good."
Yep. Can you do one more question, then you leave?
Yeah.
All right. Here it is. Last one for Steph, and then Kevin and I will answer a few more. All right, here it is. This is from Dr. William 1. Thoughts on the potential Lando series with Donald Glover? Now that he's wrapped his Atlanta schedule, should be somewhat open. It was a scheduling issue, according to Kathleen Kennedy. Yeah, but you got to realize this. That what happens inside of that is once they're like, "Oh, let's do this," and then time doesn't just stop and they go, "Okay, now we're ready to do it." It's like all of these different meetings and things happen where they're like, "Oh, well, at one point we were going to do that show, but so many things have happened since then. This show's not going to happen." What do you think, Steph?
It's not going to happen, and I think I laughed when you said Atlanta is clearing up his schedule, not to make fun of you, but I think it's going to get even more busy. I mean, he's one of the most sought-after creators, if not the most right now. He's incredible, and I just think that I think that there's a time and a place where he might want to do that, but he's the one still attached to Mr. and Mrs. Smith, not Phoebe Waller-Bridge, right? Or is it one of them is no longer attached, but I just think he has so many things in the pipeline right now, and to what you're saying, it's not the story people are looking for. Lando's one of the sickest characters. I just don't think it's a priority. It's like missed the mark.
I'm going to quote you again. It's time to move on.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody, like you said, like no. Even back with Solo, like I love Han Solo, but when they were gonna say our first Solo movie, or single spin-off movie, when you were gonna guess out of the original trilogy,
should have been Obi-Wan.
Yeah, it should have been Obi-Wan. Yeah. You don't think like, oh, we need a Han Solo origin story. But we got it, and again, I loved it, and I loved him as Lando. So maybe a Lethal Weapon Lando Han Solo buddy cop movie one day, but it's gone. It's unfortunately, it's releasing in summer, right after or before Infinity War. I forget what happened. It's like, what were they thinking?
Yeah.
It's a Christmas movie. Yeah.
All right. Well, Steph, thank you. We'll see you
Thank you.
next.
Good seeing you so
See you
much.
next Thursday
Bye,
or
y'all.
Wednesday. All right. Steph's got to make sure you check out World Girls. That's where she's out to do right now. And myself and Kevin will keep on asking a few more of these questions here. All right, here's the next one. Thank you again to Dr. William 1 for that question. Alf Tanner 755. Could Moff Gideon be a former Mandalorian? It could explain why he knows about the culture so much. I don't think so. I don't think that's the case at all. I think he's it seems like because I don't know, it doesn't seem like he's got that loyalty that all the Mandalorians kind of had, or following the. Why would he want to destroy he like wrecked the whole place?
That's not a very Mandalorian thing to kind of do. Like I'm steeped
even the rogues had their own like ideology.
Yeah, like and steeped in the Mandalorian culture from like the Knights of the Old Republic and stuff. Like it's just you're not dealing with that. So that would be a misstep if they did that. But
yeah, I agree. I don't think that's going to be the case. All right, next question here as we keep on moving forward. Here is the next question. Thank you again to Alf Tanner. And let's go to Buckeye725. With all the news, rumors about Kathleen Kennedy stepping down soon, who would you want to see replace her? I think you need a Kevin Feige-like replacement, a great producer, but a knowledgeable fan of the lore. Also, if The Acolyte is as good as we hope it is, do you think we will see Lucasfilm continue to explore further into the past via the higher Old Republic? So two-part question here. Let's start with the High Republic stuff. I do think that they'll continue on. I think that there's a potential that if the series is really good and how it's set up, no one has said that this is a mini series. This could very well be the Acolyte season 2 that it comes out, right?
Yeah.
They get set up for season 2. Very similar to what I was talking about before. If the right characters are playing into it, they could then go into a spin-off series. What I always hoped, whether more so in the Old Republic, my overall dream for the Old Republic is that they set it up with what Lindelof and Benioff and Weiss were going to do. The rumor was that Benioff and Weiss were going to start with how the first Jedi and Sith came to be. That was the first thing. And then what I always hoped is that you started with that, and then you started to get into the Old Republic, and then you started to get into like this almost like ancient kind of Rome thing where all the Jedi are fighting the Sith, and it happens for years, and you can spend seasons into movies, but you can spend seasons into that until eventually you get to a place where, like, imagine like season 3 or season 4 into the Old Republic is then they recruit this guy into the Sith and it's Bane. And Bane kills them all off with a thought bomb, and he kills them all off in the end of like season 5, and you're like, whoa, where are they going with this series? And then it turns out you start to follow Bane, and you start to follow him inside of the Rule of Two, and then that eventually leads into Plagueis, and that eventually leads into Palpatine, and the finale of this whole thing is just the lead into, you know what I mean?
See,
It's like,
from your lips to God's ears. I
Right.
mean, also, like, that's a red wedding style thing when Bane comes, especially when you first hear his name. That would be awesome. And like the show, because you just call it Knights of the Old Republic, like you would have or just
the Old Republic,
the Old Republic, and you can go and storytell. That's what like the Luke and the Luke scenes with Grogu in the Boba Fett series felt so out of place, because it was like, I know that Grogu later shows up in the finale, but that's when I was like, well, that would be the concept of like a Star Wars show. If you just had a show called Star Wars where you can just jump around. So with Old Republic, the same thing. Like you can tell these stories, and you can tell the beginnings, and then when you finally meet Bane, and then several seasons later, like, in The Tudors or whatever, it's a Netflix show about like the dynasty of King Henry VIII. And they go through so many of his reign and so many of his wives, obviously, that he was always, sending off for their heads or whatever. But the funny thing is that like you went through different periods, and like you can do the Old Republic the same way, where like you have Bane, not villain of the week, but like Bane now suddenly is the main person we're following, and then eventually you start to meet other Jedi.
But even before you start with Revan and Malak, or not even Revan and Malak first. First you get like the first couple of seasons is the beginning of like the Sith, and then eventually, because Revan was a Jedi, you know, and like the idea of like all that stuff and how that all plays into it, and how like eventually, and then the years in between that, and the like the first few seasons are like the reign of Revan and the reign of Malak and all that, and then you finally get to it, and like you can play into this whole thing.
How would they shoot it too? Like, do you think they would shoot it? You know how like most Star Wars shows look real crisp and clean, right? Like Mandalorian looks real crisp and clean. Andor had a little bit more of a grungy vibe, a grit vibe. I'm wondering if with Old Republic, they would go where it would look more like, oh, this could be.
I think it
Game
would
of
change. I
Thrones.
think it could change. I think it change throughout it, but I think you'd kind of shoot it like what Rome was trying to do back in the day. But, but to the first part of that question, he asked the question of, would Kathleen Kennedy, if she stepped down, who would you want to replace her?
After that speech, I'd say Kristian Harloff.
Oh, please.
I love your ideas.
But like, if there was a, it's not an easy choice because people would right away say Filoni, Favreau. Filoni is in the same, and hear me out before you guys go, whoa, what? In the same position that Kathleen Kennedy is in as far as running the whole ship. He's a creative guy. I'm not saying he's not a good executive, but like Lucasfilm is not just Star Wars. Lucasfilm is all of it. Filoni don't want to do that. Filoni, he wants to be in charge of Indiana Jones and in charge of Willow and in charge of, you don't want to do that. Like,
Favreau, would he?
I mean, he could, but the thing is with Favreau, I mean, I'd like to, and I think Favreau is a worthy candidate. I don't know if he's the guy. He's a worthy candidate for sure. He's a great producer. He's a great creative head. He's a great director. He is revolutionary when it comes to certain things inside of technology and the stuff he's done with the volume and the stuff that he did. Whether you like the Lion King and Jungle Book or not, which I like both those movies, but what he did there and the way he was able to put forth technology, and he's got a great eye for it. Worthy candidate. I just think there's someone out there like that we don't know about in that world. Like someone that you're just like, this is the person who understands Star Wars to a T, who understands that, like, it's not just about who the hot director of the week is. It's not just about trying to make the money in the old school, because producing in these big IP stuff has changed dramatically in the days of because Indiana Jones is a very different movie to make than a Star Wars movie is now.
Yeah.
Because Indiana Jones just needs to be a great movie. It needs to be better than the last one, which is not going to be too tough. But it also needs to be a good adventure film. And I think that's what Kathleen Kennedy is. I bet you that movie is one of her crowning achievements. And I bet you it turns out to be a great movie. And I bet you she produces the hell out of it. Star Wars needs to play into the same type of model that Marvel is playing into. And it needs to be, what can we do to keep furthering on? Because back in the day with the original trilogy,
Yeah.
it was, okay, we need to make a good movie that eventually goes 7, 8, 9, and that's it. Or not 7, 8, 9, 4, 5, and 6, and that's it. We're done.
Well, he was shooting 4. He shot the Death Star sequence first because he was worried the studio would come back and be like, no, you rescued the princess at the end of the Death Star sequence. You're good. Let's cut you off. We'll have a movie there. And he was like so worried. So he didn't even know if he was going to get to film the entire movie. And then he goes from Empire
but he just knew 4, 5, and 6, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
He had ideas for movies, but I'm done. There always needs to be something new because they have now Disney has bought the IP and they don't want to stop. They want it to keep making money and keep making machines. So in order to do that, you've got to always have a certain like a plan. So by doing these things, we're like, this is why these ideas of like the Taika Waititis and the Colin Trevorrows and the Patty Jenkins and these things, like who's Ryan Johnson, who's popular, who's cool, come on, you guys are doing it. It's like, no, like have that same plan that I've said until it blew in the face. Come up with all of the ideas, then bring in the talented directors and go, here's our plan. Do you like this plan? Can you be part of this plan? And what would you add to that plan?
Yeah.
That is the what I hope continues to or starts to happen inside of this. But and you need to find someone like that an executive that's going to not say, well, this is what we need to do, guys. You need to do this. It's like, okay, here's what we need to do as far as the plan. Here's our plan. Here's what we're going to do. And that's what Feige does.
Yeah, and maybe you don't want someone who's a big name, because if you have a big name like James Gunn, right? I'm excited as much as anyone else is to see where they go. Bummed about some of the choices as far as I love Cavill and stuff like that. But like, James Gunn's on Twitter kind of defending himself and stuff because he's a big social media guy and a big entity. Maybe you just need that no name who's going to go in there and he's just has a love for Star Wars. We don't know who he is yet, but we will in 10 years, he or she, and in 10 years we'll be like, oh my God, that was a great decision. Yeah.
All right, let's see. Last question here of the day, and then we can let Kevin go. Here is the question. DavDH, what is your expectation for Mandalorian Season 3? Is Boba Fett going to show up? I don't know about Boba Fett, because the only reason I would say that Boba Fett will show up is if they're wanting to go forward with Season 2, which they had kind of been rumors for. I was actually pretty excited when they didn't announce it at Celebration, because everybody was making this rumor. This rumor was out there that Season 2 was going to be announced at Celebration. And I was like, oh God, I hope not. And that to me was was a miniseries. It's over and done with. You don't need it anymore. I love having Tamora Morrison back. I love having him. You can put him all over the. He's going to be in Ahsoka. You're going to have him in all these different things. You don't need him in.
Let's get a Captain Rex Ahsoka appearance from Tamora Morrison.
I think Rex is going to be in Ahsoka. I think that's what. I think that's
amazing.
I think that's a heavy. I think that was either announced already or at least a heavy rumor. That's a guarantee. He's going to be. He's going to be in there. Yeah, because he's with her. Isn't he with her when in the end of Rebels? Yeah. Yeah.
So does the Ahsoka show happen after?
It's after Rebels.
It's after. So it's Uncharted. It's after. Is it not? It's before. It's after Mando too, right? Like.
So it's after. So what from the rumor is, and Filoni kind of hinted at this. The rumor is that, that scene in Mandalorian when Ahsoka asks, "Where is your boss? Where's Thrawn?" or whatever. Too. That's supposed to be right before the ending of Rebels, and then right after that, she shows up and tells Sabine, "I know where he is."
Oh, interesting.
Like that ties into all of it. That's supposed to be the because she shows up to Sabine and goes, "Okay, let's go," and that's why you see all this stuff. Now the rumor is that Mary Elizabeth Winstead is playing Hera.
Yeah.
You've got. I mean, the question is, no one mentioned Zeb.
Yeah.
Zeb's got to show up.
Oh, man, a live action Zeb.
Yeah, I know he's off with Callus at this point.
Yeah.
Is Callus going to show up in Andor? By the way,
I was hoping. I had that on my bingo card. For not season 1, but for season 2. So I'm still kind of hoping for that.
Interesting. But as far as Mandalorian season 3, hard to say because Mandalorian season 2 is my favorite live action series so far in Star Wars.
Okay.
It's my number. It goes number is Mando season 2 is my number 1. Then maybe Andor, and then Mando season 1. Then Obi-Wan. I'm not including animated on this one. Then Obi-Wan, then Boba Fett. So I think that Mandalorian season 3, from the way this is going to be the most epic series so far. Bo-Katan seems to have a really big role in this.
We're going to see Mandalore.
I think this is going to be the best season yet.
Yeah.
I really do. That's my expectation. My expectations of this show is this is going to be the best because it's really Din has found himself and knows what he is, and it's also him trying to. He loves being a Mandalorian. He loves it, and he's been kind of told by the armorer that he has to get his shit back together, and now he's partnered back up with Grogu again, which I thought they could have gone a little longer without pairing them back up, but whatever, they're paired back up, and then just the idea that we're going to see Mandalore, and we know that Giancarlo is coming back because he's talked about it. I think this is going to be the best season so far.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've always been deep into the Mandalorian culture from my love for the Knights of the Old Republic games. So to see Mandalore is just going to be like, it's like my Chewie we're home moment from that trailer. That's going to be fantastic. So I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to, But when he asked if Boba Fett would show up too, I think Tamora Morrison would be in it, but I don't know.
The only reason I think he shows up is if he shows up. That means they're doing season 2.
Yeah, and it's like it would be like I'm thinking, is there a call to arms to everybody chip in to get Mandalore? But he doesn't really have that many time. Yeah, he doesn't care probably. It's like he's busy being, Soprano on Tatooine. Oh, give us our Plagueis novel. Movie.
I mean, he's busy doing something on Tatooine. Fennec is more Tony Soprano than he is. I'll do one more. Fine. That's fine.
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
I'm moving. I'm never coming back.
Trevor Hernandez, where can Cal Kestis make his live action debut? Well, I had heard, I heard that they were putting that into development, series, but I don't know where it is.
Oh, a series, so not even a cameo.
No, a series. The rumor was I had heard that he was in heavy discussion to do a series.
What about Skeleton Crew? I mean,
that's going to play into the whole. And then another question we didn't get to. Someone asked who's going to play Thrawn. It's pretty much guaranteed that it's going to be
right?
Lars Mikkelsen. Yeah. I mean, that's there. I think there's already rumors that they've seen him on site.
Is Jude Law playing a young Lor San Tekka?
That's a great call.
This will begin to make things right.
I don't know. I think that again. I think he's a brand new character, and I think that the rumor is that these kids go out into the unknown regions, and I think that I think it all ties in. This Skeleton Crew is part of the Filoni Favreau universe, so like all of that stuff lands within, and you've got 3 series this year that are all inside of that universe,
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be room for Cal Kestis, and I'm just trying to think then, like where would he show up?
Not now, unless it gets. I mean, because let's end it with this then. We know. Let's go over 2023 and what we know from 2024, right? As far as series go. So you've got in 2023, you've got Mandalorian on March 1st, and then you've got Ahsoka somewhere in the July-August area, and then the end of the year you're going to end with Skeleton Crew. Okay, so next year, potentially, if they do Bad Batch season 3, it might land in January again. It might not.
Yeah, it's just the easy go-to because animation.
If you needed it to, right? Acolyte's probably going to be the first series of the year.
Wow.
That will probably be Acolyte will probably land, and then in 2024. Then Andor season 2 will be in 2024.
And maybe that's it, and they do a lull because they're going to be a movie in 2025. Do you think they would maybe hold off on some shows and be like, let's not overkill?
Disney Plus is going to go, what we need ratings.
Yeah.
So the question is then inside of that, when does Mandalorian season 4 come, right? Does Mandalorian season 4 come in?
Did he say he wanted to do more? Or
this is not the last season. No,
I don't think.
No, they would have said this is the final season. They'll do another one. But season 4 will play probably 2025, I would say. But 2024 there might be an announcement then of another series, because Andor. Yeah, what is it? Andor, Acolyte, and what else? We don't know what comes out of that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. My mind's I can't.
Unless they do Boba Fett season 2, which is possible.
Or just a brand new series altogether,
which is what I would prefer.
A Cal Kestis. I mean, would you want a Cal Kestis?
That's what I'm saying.
Series?
Yeah, I'd be interested in it. It's also a matter of when that game comes out.
Yeah,
and
it
how
comes
that
out
does.
in March on St. Patrick's Day.
This March.
Yes.
Okay, so that one I hope it's easier.
Listen,
dude, I kept falling off cliffs.
My fellow Scoundrels Inc. Shameless plug. They're all excited about it. I love games, but I'm not good at video games. Yeah. So I mean, the whole reason I made the KOTOR movies was so people that were not good at video games could watch the KOTOR series. Same thing. I watched not a long play, but I watched like someone took the cutscenes and played through the game. So I loved the story and stuff. And halfway through the movie, I was just like, "There's no way I would have been able to get far on this game."
I just kept falling off. No, I kept falling off cliffs. and the problem was like that's what I said. This is what I hope the games like. I like the games that after a while they're like, idiot, stop going that way. And go that way. Like Uncharted did that. Like after a while, it's like tip. Go that way.
Grand Theft Auto did it too, where you can just press the B button and skip it after 3 mission tries.
Yeah, go this way because you're not smart enough to do this. So go that way, and like that's what I need for the because I was spending like 45 minutes on something that should have taken someone 3 minutes, and I'm like I can't do it, and
you have a family and kids, and like the same thing for me. It's like you're gonna only have this small window, which is why a game like Squadrons is great, you know. So I feel like I heard that they're going to do something where it's like a guided, like it'll help you a little bit.
So the map was crap on that one too. But anyway, listen, we got a lot in there today. Thank you for everybody who submitted questions. Thanks for Steph being here, and thanks for Kevin Smets for being here too. Kevin, you just mentioned your show. Where can they find it?
You could find Scoundrels Inc. on there it is, Scoundrels Inc. show. We talk Star Wars and a lot of more ridiculous things. You could find it on our YouTube channel. Just search Scoundrels Inc. And then I also do, and that's with Frank, Sean, and Brandon, and we talk about all sorts of stuff. We're going through the original series right now, the original trilogy, so that's kind of fun, and talking about Bad Batch. And then I'm still doing these Knights of the Old Republic movies that I sent you all those years ago. So we're doing a KOTOR 3 series. So there's no KOTOR 3 game. Never happened, right? So we have used the animation tools at our disposal using the game engine and created our own machinima, which is animated movie. We've made our own movies based on what our version of a full script that we wrote based on what we think a KOTOR 3 would be like. And just to give you a little example, it's basically the hero of KOTOR 1, Revan, and the heroine of KOTOR 2, which was the Exile or Mitra. They kind of have a clashing of ideologies, and they kind of come to a head. And then there's a bigger threat in the horizon. So we have a lot of fun with that. The fans, we did a trailer. It's like for something that came out in 2003, we did a trailer and it did like 47,000 views.
So, still. That's what I'm saying, man. I just hope that
there's a market for it.
It really is. All right, everybody. So thank you guys for joining us here today on the Sith Council show. Thank you to Kevin. Thank you to Steph. And if you guys haven't done it already, please make sure you listen to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you can find podcasts. It is very, very helpful to the show. Patreon. So many new patrons. I can't thank you enough. Patreon.com/TheBigThingShow. It keeps us going, man. And then get yourself a Sith Council shirt. That is the most sold shirt on the site right now. Sith Council, show some class, Top Gun guy, capes and cows, so many different things. Thank you to our friends over at TeePublic. All right, for Kevin Smets and Steph Sabral and me, thank you, everybody. See you next time.
I can feel